The stars were no longer safe. For centuries, the Surari Union had thrived in peace, an advanced, art-loving civilization nestled in the gentle spiral of the Marathi Arm. Though not a major power, the Surari had earned respect across the galaxy for their diplomacy, culture, and commitment to pacifism. But peace made them soft, and when the Dravari Reapers came, cold machine-flesh hybrids built for war, no one was prepared. Their attack was sudden and methodical. The Dravari didn't negotiate or claim territory. They simply descended on Surari colonies, sterilizing entire populations and harvesting the remaining infrastructure for unknown purposes. Within days, 5 Surari worlds were silent. The Galactic Confederation, the galaxy's dominant governing body, remained unmoved. Behind closed doors, politicians cited the Surari status as a non-contributing observer race. Outside Confederation defense treaties, others feared antagonizing the Dravari. The message was clear: the Surari were on their own. In desperation, Envoy Tavrixa Vel, a cultural liaison trained in art and diplomacy, not war, hijacked a planetary comm relay and broadcast a universal message. It was raw, unfiltered, and filled with fear. To any species, to any soul who still values life, we beg for aid. The Dravari do not conquer, they erase. Our pleas have been ignored, but we know of one world, a place feared for its savagery, a planet that the Confederation classifies as Deathworld-Class 5. If you are listening, if the stories are true, please help us. Earth, we call to you. Tavrixa didn't know if humans were real. The Surari kept oral legends of Earth, tales, whispered among xenoanthropologists about a violent world that once challenged galactic norms with its unpredictable behavior, brief ascension, and then sudden radio silence. The official record showed humanity as isolated, unpredictable, dangerously creative, but the Surari had nothing left to lose. The message raced across hyperwave channels, reaching dead space, pirate outposts, and finally, Earth. Back on Earth, humanity had changed. The world had gone dark 2 centuries ago, severing diplomatic channels after what they referred to as the Treaty of Dismissal, a galactic vote where Earth's petitions for equal standing were denied. Since then, no human ships were seen, no ambassadors spoke, and no transmissions were answered. But Earth was not silent because it was broken. It was silent because it was preparing. Deep beneath the ice crust of Europa, in quantum listening posts buried in asteroid belts and across fortified rings surrounding Earth's orbit, the call was received. A high-priority flag triggered an old ancient protocol, civilian distress, authenticated. Within the Earth Defense Directive, a hidden multinational alliance tasked with planetary protection and deep space engagement, something massive stirred. Cold fusion cores came online. Shipyards powered up after decades of dormancy. The name of the asset being awakened was whispered by engineers and officers alike: ESS Barrowfang. The official response was short and cold. Distress signal acknowledged. Asset deployment authorized. Stand by. For Tavrixa, silence followed. Hours passed. Days. And then, the Surari defense grid picked up a gravitational signature so massive it caused atmospheric interference. A vessel, black, silent, and built like a floating fortress, breached Surari space without warning or introduction. It didn't hail. It didn't respond to contact attempts. It simply broadcast one line: targets identified, commencing operations. Help had arrived, but not in the form of mercy or soft words. Earth had answered, but with the power of a death world. To the Surari Union, rescue often came with banners, fleets, and grand declarations. But what arrived from Earth shattered every expectation. From the edge of the system, a tear in space shimmered and widened. A hyperspace rupture stabilized by graviton claws that even the Dravari hadn't perfected. From it emerged a vessel unlike anything in known galactic records. A matte black behemoth nearly 2 kilometers long, bristling with unrecognizable weaponry and shielded by an energy field that bent light and sensors alike. This was ESS Barrowfang. The ship bore no colors, no insignia of alliance, just the cold silence of a machine designed not to communicate, but to end threats. The Sorari's orbital scanners strained to analyze it. AI protocols failed to penetrate its systems. Even the automated Confederation satellites were jammed the moment it arrived. Inside, Captain Ilya Wren stood at the helm. A veteran of the unseen wars humanity had fought during its self-imposed exile, Wren was not a diplomat. She was a tactician, born from the last century's Earth, a place where survival meant mastering both warfare and restraint. Her eyes never left the forward display. "Status?" she asked, voice calm, emotionless. "Orbital Dravari presence confirmed," replied the onboard AI, codename Krios, whose synthetic voice bore the edge of something too old and too knowing. "Commence. Cleansing sweep." Without a single diplomatic hail, the Barrowfang moved. Back on Sorari Prime, Envoy Tavrixa watched from a planetary bunker. She had expected relief ships, maybe medical dropships, perhaps even a coalition response from humanity. But what appeared above her world was a hunter. Sorari control centers tried to establish contact, to welcome Earth's emissaries, but every attempt was met with static. Not interference, intentional silence. Then came the only signal Earth transmitted. Since arriving, targets identified, commencing operations. And operations commenced with terrifying precision. The Barrowfang launched what appeared to be metallic spheres, self-guided kill drones with fractal armor that made them invisible to standard countermeasures. They swarmed Dravari vessels, carving through hulls with nanofilament whips and liquefying AI cores using zero-point bursts. The human ship didn't move like other warships. It danced. Every weapon was choreographed, every strike purposeful, every maneuver designed to conserve fuel, minimize exposure, and maximize destruction. In less than 7 minutes, the entire Dravari strike fleet was gone. But the Barrowfang didn't stop. It deployed surface entry pods, tactical strike teams comprised of human operators in exo-armor that responded to thought commands. Their presence wasn't just overwhelming, it was surgical. These weren't conquerors. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to end the threat, and then leave. To the Galactic Confederation, this was a breach of interstellar law. To the Sorari, it was salvation, and to Tavrixa, it was terrifying. She didn't know what humanity had become. But one thing was now undeniable. Earth had not disappeared. It had evolved into something the galaxy had never seen before, and when humans answered a call for help, they didn't bring words. They brought a warship that terrified even the machines. The galaxy had long theorized about Deathworld technology. Rumors whispered in elite military circles, dismissed by the Galactic Confederation as exaggeration or myth. But when the ESS Barrowfang opened fire, all speculation ended. The Dravari, Reapers, notorious for their adaptive shielding and decentralized AI warfare, had expected resistance from the Sorari. At most, perhaps interference from fringe pirates or rogue mercenaries. They were not prepared for Earth's answer. Above Sorari Prime, space became a demonstration zone. The Barrowfang's first salvo was silent. A flash of distorted gravity. Around its prow signaled the deployment of graviton-lensed rail cannons, a form of kinetic weaponry that used collapsing mass fields to accelerate tungsten carbide slugs to relativistic speeds. There was no beam, no glow, just Dravari cruisers imploding into themselves as their internal structures were pulverized faster than their shields could react. Next came the void-sheathed drones, launched in swarms from ventral bays. Each was the size of a manned fighter but piloted by aggressive war AIs cloned from battlefield data collected across centuries. The drones didn't engage in prolonged dogfights. They hunted, using quantum tethering to share data in real time, circling targets in perfect coordination before unleashing ultrasonic disruptors that liquefied hull integrity from the inside. Dravari's famed adaptive AI tried to hack the drones. That was a mistake. Inside each drone was a Trojan counter AI, Earth's answer to invasive programming. The moment a Dravari infiltration attempt was detected, the virus reversed direction. Within seconds, Dravari command corps suffered full system corruption. Cruisers began firing on one another in chaos. Some detonated in space. Others spiraled into Serari's upper atmosphere, burning like dying stars. Still, the Barrowfang remained, silent. From the surface, Tavrixa Vel watched with a mix of awe and horror. She had never seen such cold, deliberate violence. There was no celebration, no declarations of victory, only calculated annihilation. The final blow came not from weapons, but from Earth's tactical intelligence systems. Once the Barrowfang's onboard AI, Krios, had mapped the enemy's fleet formation, it deployed spectral dampers, invisible energy fields that disrupted navigational sensors. Dravari reinforcements jumped into a kill zone blind. They didn't. Last 60 seconds. The skies cleared. In total, 78 enemy vessels were destroyed. Human losses, 0. The Serari hadn't even launched a defense. Galactic observers watching secretly from Confederation satellites scrambled to contain the footage. But data fragments leaked. Across the stars, other races replayed the raw footage in silence. What they saw wasn't just power. It was restraint. Earth had committed overwhelming force, but had done so with surgical precision. No Serari infrastructure had been damaged. No civilians harmed. And the Barrowfang hadn't fired a single shot at anything not actively hostile. Back on Serari Prime, a new signal pulsed through the atmosphere. This one local, brief, and unmistakably human. Orbit secured, commencing. Planetary sweep. There was no victory speech, no claim of territory, just the next phase of the operation. To Earth, this wasn't a war. It was cleanup. And to the galaxy watching in shock, one terrifying truth had now become clear. Humanity had not just built warships, they had built Deathworld-class weapons of judgment. The battle in orbit was over, but for the Serari, the real revelation was just beginning. As the ESS Barrowfang transitioned to atmospheric operations, its presence sparked a ripple of unease across Serari Prime. Every citizen, from scientists to diplomats, had grown up with cautionary tales about humans, unpredictable, untamed beings from a death world whose environment had forged not just their bodies, but their minds in adversity. And now, one of their most advanced warships hovered over the capital in complete silence. Envoy Tavrixa Vel, still struggling to comprehend the surgical brutality she had witnessed in orbit, was granted an unexpected signal. It came as a narrow beam, encrypted data packet routed through Serari Military Command. An invitation. Landing request authorized. Human ground team en route. Prepare for interface. An interface? Not a diplomatic envoy or military liaison. Not even a request to meet leadership. Just interface. It was not the language of allies, it was the language of tools executing a protocol. The human dropship descended like a shard of midnight, its hull a seamless surface of dark matter-infused alloy. It landed outside the capital's perimeter. No weapons deployed, no flags raised, no soldiers marched. Instead, 3 figures emerged, humans in exosuits unlike anything seen in galactic warfare. These weren't the clunky, fuel-guzzling armor, suits the Confederation occasionally used. They moved like living beings, as if the suits were an extension of flesh. They didn't speak at first. Just scanned, assessed, and advanced with chilling composure. When Tavrixa stepped forward to greet them, she was struck not by hostility, but by discipline. One human removed her helmet, revealing an aging woman with gray-streaked hair, her eyes sharp with controlled focus. "I am Commander Arlen Voss," she said simply. "Tactical Operations Lead. Status: System secure, threat neutralized. Will now assist in containment and recovery." "Why?" Tavrixa asked, bewildered. "Why are you helping us?" "Like this." Voss studied her for a moment, then answered, "Because someone asked. That was it. No political angle, no demand for resources or territory. Earth hadn't come for conquest or fame. They had come because a distress call reached them, and to ignore it would have gone against the core doctrine Earth had developed in its long silence. No sentient life abandoned, not under our watch. As recovery operations began, the Serari were finally allowed limited access to the Barrowfang's data logs, carefully curated, of course. What they learned was staggering. Earth had restructured its society around resilience and independence after the Confederation rejected their appeal for equal status. Over the last 2 centuries, humans had developed self-contained planetary defense ecosystems, with fleets like the Barrowfang built not for conquest, but deterrence. They had integrated AI, nanotechnology, and quantum warfare in ways the Confederation hadn't even theorized yet. Earth's military was smaller than most, but it didn't need to be large. It only needed to be final. The galaxy had mocked Earth, then ignored it. Now they would have to respect it, or face consequences beyond comprehension. And as the Serari began rebuilding, one thought echoed in Tavrix's mind. Humanity didn't just survive the galaxy's rejection, they turned that rejection into a crucible and emerged sharper than anyone imagined. When news of the ESS Barrowfang's intervention over Serari Prime began to circulate, the Galactic Confederation reacted not with relief, but with fear. Officially, Earth was still a non-participating observer species, a designation the Confederation had created to exclude them from voting blocs, trade councils, and military alliances. Unofficially, most believed Earth had faded into irrelevance after their appeal for equal rights was rejected over a century ago. Now, the footage, leaked by third-party observation drones and rogue information traders, told a different story. In the Grand Chamber of Solaris, where the Confederation Council met, arguments erupted. Dozens of species, each with their own priorities and histories with Earth, watched the playback of the Barrowfang decimating a Dravari fleet in minutes. Some delegates wanted to declare Earth a rogue power. Others wanted to invite them to the table before it was too late. High Chancellor Velmari Zo, an aging Cathari stateswoman, pounded her staff against the polished floor. They ignored our rules, operated without authorization, engaged in a military action within a protected system. To which Ambassador Kaeltrin Doss, one of the few longtime human sympathizers, replied coolly, and did what none of us dared. The Serari were being erased. We sent condolences. Earth sent salvation. The Council fell into uneasy silence. Behind the scenes, Confederation intelligence ran simulations. How many vessels like the Barrowfang existed? What were the limits of human AI warfare? Could their defenses be penetrated? Every result came back with the same conclusion. Engaging Earth directly would be catastrophic. Worse, further analysis revealed a pattern. Humanity hadn't just intervened on Serari Prime. Smaller, more covert operations had occurred across the frontier. Rogue pirate fleets vanishing, remote colonies mysteriously stabilized, and shadow conflicts ending without explanation. Earth had been watching and preparing for a long time. And now, their silence had broken. Confederation analysts reviewed the Barrowfang's weaponry and strategic behavior. They noted several alarming signs. Precision-targeted quantum strikes that no known countermeasure could deflect. 0 human casualties despite overwhelming enemy forces, indicating flawless tactical doctrine. Restraint, which scared them more than destruction. Earth had chosen not to retaliate beyond the threat. That meant they could, but didn't. To many in the Confederation, Earth had become something they didn't understand, not a rival empire or a rising ally, but a force of nature, one that operated by its own rules, answering only to its people, not galactic law. Back on Earth, high-level operatives were well aware of the Council's panic. Surveillance networks kept tabs on diplomatic chatter, AI intercepts, and strategic mobilizations. But the human response was measured. No threats, no ultimatums, just silence, because that silence was the warning. Chancellor Velmari eventually proposed forming a joint defense directive to monitor Earth's actions. The motion passed, but no species volunteered to confront them directly. Even the Varnock Dominion, known for posturing, refused to send scout fleets near Sol. Meanwhile, Whispers spread throughout the galaxy. If you're in danger, call Earth. Because now, every species, ally or enemy, understood one undeniable truth. Earth wasn't weak. Earth hadn't vanished. Earth had evolved into something the Confederation could neither control nor survive challenging. And in the vacuum of their fear, one question remained. What would humans do next, now that the galaxy finally knew what they'd become? In the days that followed the Serari liberation, a new era quietly began. Not with declarations, but with remembrance. The ESS Barrowfang remained in orbit for only a short while longer, not to impose dominance but to ensure recovery protocols were successful. Supply drones delivered advanced med-tech units to hospitals. Infrastructure stabilizers repaired power grids using nanite matrix deployers. Not a single credit was requested. No contracts were signed. For the Serari, it was humbling. They had lived in fear, first of their extinction, then of their savior. But as the days passed, what struck them was not the Barrowfang's weaponry or its terrifying precision. It was the human's restraint, compassion, and clarity of purpose. Commander Arlen Voss, in her final message to Serari Planetary Command, before departure said, "We came because you asked. We leave because we can. Stay strong and know you are not alone." That recording would later become a symbol of hope across dozens of frontier systems. As Earth's warship exited orbit, the galaxy held its breath. Would they demand allegiance? Expand militarily? Form their own empire? They did none of that. Instead, Earth initiated a non-political aid network. Named the Sol Accord, it operated independently of the Confederation, offering voluntary defensive support to outer rim colonies and developing civilizations. The catch? No government could abuse the aid. If they did, Earth withdrew completely. It was justice without conquest, power without tyranny. For many fringe species long ignored or mistreated by the Central Powers, Earth became more than a symbol. They became a promise. Back in the Galactic Confederation, tensions simmered. Internal reports warned that Earth's growing influence could destabilize old alliances. Yet no one dared move against them, not because Earth threatened retaliation, but because they didn't need to. Their silence spoke louder than any threat. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Council of Sovereigns, now composed of scientists, strategists, and elected delegates, met privately. The Barrowfang's mission had been a success, but it was just the beginning. Earth's role in the galaxy was changing, whether they liked it or not, and they would not be forgotten again. In a public address, broadcast through the Sol Accord's quantum array, High Marshal Elira Dax, Earth's newly appointed emissary, delivered a message that would go down in history. We remember when the galaxy turned its back on us. We remember the silence when we begged for help. But we survived, not to seek revenge, only to make sure no voice ever goes unheard again. We are not conquerors, we are not peacekeepers, we are Deathworlders, and when a cry for help reaches us, we answer. It was more than rhetoric. It was Earth's new doctrine. From the burned skies of Serari Prime to the farthest colonies on the edges of known space, species once isolated now had a name to whisper when danger came. Humanity. Not feared, not worshipped, but remembered. Never again would Earth be dismissed as a backwater species. Never again would their warnings be ignored or their value denied. They had risen, not as galactic rulers, but as the silent guardians forged in the crucible of a death world. And now, when the galaxy cried for help, the stars listened for the roar of their warships, because everyone knew, if the Deathworlders come, someone crossed the line.